Good morning. I want to thank the conference organizers for giving me the honor of attending and sharing some thoughts with you today about something that I think is very important. And before I begin, I just want to compliment the countries of the V4, and especially Slovakia, for hosting this conference. Etapa, I know it's been 7 or 8 years now, and I believe that bringing these issues and discussing them in a forum like this is very important. And not only that, but Slovakia's leading position in implementation of the Network and Information Security Law and developing a cybersecurity strategy, in their active partnership in organizations like V4 and NATO and the EU, and in particular their leadership role in bringing cybersecurity to prominence when they had the presidency last year of the EU. I think that's fantastic. I'm John Davis. I joined Palo Alto Networks as the Chief Security Officer for the federal sector after a 35-year career in the U.S. military. Most of my career was spent in special operations and information warfare, but the last 10 years was spent in all cyber assignments. Cyber operations, cyber strategy, cyber policy, interagency and international cooperation and coordination on cyber issues. And so before I begin to talk about the topic today, I want to dive a little deeper into that last 10 years just to give you some context for why I think the way that I do about topics like this. So in 2006, as a colonel, I commanded an Army organization that was responsible for protecting the Army's network around the world. And I had 6 regional computer emergency response teams, or CERTs, under my command, as well as the global CERT at Fort Belvoir, Virginia. In 2008, as a 1-star, I led a joint task force that was responsible for defending all of DoD's networks around the world. So that's 15,000 different network enclaves in almost 90 countries with 5 million users and, at the time, 7 million IT devices. And during that assignment, we had a near catastrophe in the Department of Defense. We found malicious software in some of our most sensitive networks. And as a result of that and the ensuing actions, the decision was made to create United States Cyber Command. And I became the first director of current operations at U.S. Cyber Command. Then in 2012, as a 2-star, I became the first senior military cyber advisor at the Pentagon, and the last year and a half of my career, I was the acting Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Cyber Policy. So a very unique career with a lot of insight into lessons, both good and bad, that the U.S. military went through during that period. And then, of course, the last 2 years, I've been at Palo Alto Network, and as a CSO, besides having the federal government as a client, the U.S. federal government, I also advise and assist other governments around the world, as well as I'm a sponsor to 15 of our global accounts across all the verticals, so finance, oil and gas, retail, pharmaceutical, et cetera. So it's with that experience that I'm going to talk to you today about technology and its impact on cyber threats and what the cybersecurity community needs to do about that. So this is what's happening, and you'll hear a lot of themes that were similar to Mr. Leonardo's comments a few minutes ago. The cost of launching a successful attack from a number of cyber organizations, adversary organizations and actors is decreasing. And that's because the cost of, or the capability in compute is going up dramatically while the cost is going down. And as a result of that, the number of successful attacks is increasing. We need to change the cost so that we increase the cost of attacks and in order to lessen the number of successful attacks. Those of you who understand what's going on in the cyber threat environment understand that threat actors and organizations understand this dynamic, and they're taking advantage of it. The days of a cyber threat being characterized as a young person in a hoodie hunched over a laptop are long gone. It is a very, very sophisticated underground capability. Especially on the criminal threat side. Cyber threat actors in the criminal underground use sophisticated marketing. They leverage automation, information sharing, tool sharing in ways that are just absolutely, they are absolutely sophisticated, and they are done with great speed and great scale. So we need to reverse this trend. And I'm going to talk about a problem before I give you some thoughts about the solution. This is the problem that I see today. The world of technology, and I include information technology, operational technology, and as those two become increasingly connected, the Internet of Things, that world is moving in one direction. And the world of the security designed to protect the world of technology is moving in exactly the opposite direction. And these directions are getting further and further apart, and this is creating a dynamic where the attacker has a large advantage over the defender. And something needs to be done about that. So in the world of technology, these are the 6 major trends that I have observed in that military experience in the last 2 years in industry. And I want to talk about them for just a minute. And you've heard this before, earlier today. In the world of technology, things are becoming simpler to understand and easier to use. They're becoming more convenient. So take the smartphone and apps as a great example. The one app was mentioned earlier, Uber. Punch a button, get a car. So it's becoming more convenient. It's taking fewer and fewer people to do more and more things. And that's because things are designed to be connected together in this world. The example of Uber, you're connecting the driver, a car, a client, GPS data, credit card information, and even customer feedback. It's all natively integrated to work in a way that you don't have to have a lot of people involved in this. It's more convenient, and it's very easy to use and simple to understand. And that's because things in this world are becoming more and more automated. Finally, in this world, things are designed proactively to solve problems. And as a result of these 6 major trends, if you look up here, these trends are driving this world towards mobile, virtual, and even IoT itself. And as a result of these trends, these are generating requirements for innovation that are moving this direction further and further to the right. And I know there are exceptions to this. There are always glitches. But in general, the user or operator experience in this world is increasingly fused, smooth, and pleasant. Now let's contrast that to the world of cybersecurity. Instead of being simpler to use and simpler to understand and easier to use, things are becoming more and more difficult. Instead of becoming more convenient, things are becoming more complicated. You don't have to look any further than password complexity or the complex requirements in order to orchestrate security controls in a network environment. Things are increasingly complicated. Instead of requiring fewer people to do more things, in the world of cybersecurity, there's an ever-growing need for more and more people. I don't know of a single organization in either government or the private sector in the cybersecurity department that's told me, I have enough people. The need for people is growing at an alarming rate, and by some estimates, by 2020, there's going to be a shortage of about 1.5 million professionals in cybersecurity. Instead of things being natively integrated to work together, things are isolated, and there are a bunch of point products. I've often used the analogy, if the cybersecurity world was like the automobile world, what I see a lot of cybersecurity organizations doing is going to 100 different auto parts stores, buying different parts in a Frankenstein manner, bringing them back into their organization, and trying to figure out how to make them work together, because they're not designed to work together. Instead of being automated, the world of cybersecurity is still largely manual response based on human decision making. And by the way, the world of technology, the cyber threat world understands this and is leveraging technology through the use of things like polymorphic malicious software that automates changes that you can't you can't hire enough people to stay ahead of that. And then finally, instead of being designed to solve problems proactively, the world of cybersecurity is largely still in a detect and respond mode after the fact. Now, I'm not saying that those aren't important functions. I think in any comprehensive cybersecurity strategy, detection, response, resilience, recovery, those are all important functions. But if you don't have a prevention first mindset, then I think that that's a mistake. In the world of cybersecurity, and believe me, I felt like this because I've lived it for the last 12 years of my life, most of the professionals just feel overwhelmed. And while I mentioned there that the world of technology resulted in fused, smooth, and pleasant outcomes, in the world of cybersecurity, that's why you feel like this, because it's not smooth. It's filled with friction, and it's downright painful, and it's very, very complicated. So what do we do about this? My suggestion is, and based on at least my experience, there are 4 different levels of integration that we need to harness and innovate within in order to make the world of cybersecurity do a U-turn and align with the direction that the world of technology is going in. And I'm going to talk about briefly each of these 4 levels. The first level is about a platform approach. And what do I mean by that? I mean by putting see the threat and stop the threat capabilities at each point along the cyber threat kill chain if you go by Lockheed Martin terminology, or the threat life cycle if you go by Gartner terminology. This is what I mean by the life cycle. These are the steps in the middle there. Those are the steps that every cyber threat actor and organization has to go through in order to do a successful attack. Success being defined down at the bottom. Now, the outcome can be different depending on whether you're talking espionage, cybercrime, military, hacktivism, but the steps remain generally the same. They don't always have to follow that sequence, but they generally do follow that sequence. And when you put the details behind those steps, that becomes an adversary playbook. So by creating a platform approach, what I'm saying is you have to be able to see and stop the threat at each of those steps before they reach a successful outcome. The second level of integration deals with deep technical partnerships, because I believe no single organization has all the resources and capabilities it needs to solve the entire problem. Therefore, in order to provide a platform approach across those kill chain steps in different environments, you need to create deep technical partnerships in order to do that with companies who are, or organizations who are industry leaders in that particular capability. So for example, my company started as a physical firewall company. In order for us to do what I just said in a virtual environment, we have to partner with VMware as an example. To do it in a cloud environment, we have to create those deep technical partnerships with Microsoft and with Amazon. And those are the types of partnerships I'm talking about. And that's because those steps in the kill chain, they occur in different places of the environment. They occur at the endpoint and in IoT devices as they become connected to the network environment, at the internet edge of an organization, between employees and their devices, at in the data centers and between virtual machines, and finally, they occur in the cloud. And I'm talking public, private, and SaaS applications. So you have to be able to do that across all those environments, and that's why I believe technical partnerships are absolutely essential in aligning to the direction that the world of technology is going in. The third level is very interesting, and we're just beginning to do this within the industry, and I think you're going to see this significantly disrupt the way cybersecurity is consumed. Companies like mine have a tremendous amount of threat telemetry. You know, as an example, my company is in I think about 150 countries around the world and has about 45,000 clients. That's a tremendous amount of threat data that we're able to see. What we're talking about here is opening up that threat data and allowing, through APIs, application program interfaces, allowing other companies, including competitor companies, to plug in, to build an app to plug into our data and do interesting things with it. I would suggest we don't even know that the impact this is going to have. We can't even imagine some of the positive results that this will encourage. And then finally, the fourth level of integration is information sharing. And I believe it's absolutely essential to get involved in, and if you have a cybersecurity provider who is not involved in information sharing relationships, you should ask them why not. This is the ability to see over the horizon. There's you should all Google a alliance called the Cyber Threat Alliance. It's made up of 16 competitor cybersecurity companies. My company is one of them, that all share cyber threat information freely. And as a result of that, they are able, what is seen by one company in some part of the world is shared with all, so that everybody's clients can be protected. So with that, I'll conclude and just remind you that in order to align with the direction that technology is going in, I believe that those are the four levels of integration that will help the cybersecurity industry do a U-turn and align with that direction. Thank you very much.